I am just looking over a stack of material in front of me, and it's all written across the top of each one of these pages. It reads refugee, and it's related to that situation. Now, for the moment, we're off the hook in Idaho, or you would think we are, because the board of directors at the College of Southern Idaho fell in line when the governor said he didn't want any more refugees until this program got sorted out. On the other hand, the president of the United States is now threatening the states that say they will not take refugees. It seems to me that the president, when he wants to, can be what you'd call very forceful in an imperial sort of way when he doesn't get his way. But if you had a sanctuary city and that was violating federal law, then he wouldn't bother enforcing that. So it could well be that he is going to bring some sort of lawsuit against these states if these states persist in refusing. At some point, you've got to say to yourself, how much longer will we be bullied by the federal government or by this guy? Let it go to court, because he's only with us now for not even 14 more months. 13 and a half months, I guess, before he's out of office. 8 minutes after 9 o'clock, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. But a lot of arguments going on about who should come here. We have candidates who are saying, look, Republican candidates, saying that the refugees themselves would prefer to stay in the Middle East. Why wouldn't they? This is where it's their home. It's thousands of years of their ancestors have lived and died, and all of their relatives are, and it's for the most part what they know, and they don't really want to pick up and go in many cases. They just feel they don't have a choice. But if a neighbor could take them in, and once more you have Saudi Arabia, they don't want them because they're worried there might be terrorists among them. That's why the Saudis aren't taking them. And yet we're being told, don't worry about it. This is a normal vetting process. The whole world seems to be just losing its mind. This was a church service in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Thanksgiving Day, one of the local Roman Catholic churches decided to scrap its noon mass and replace it with an interfaith service. In fact, a United Methodist preacher was invited to come and say a few words. I want you to take a listen for a moment to what he actually had to say. Now, he's reading this in English, but most people are likely more familiar with it in Arabic.
Friends, we'll share in the summons to worship, and we'll share in the English. God is great. I bear witness that there is no God except the one God. I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Hurry to the prayer. Hurry to success. God is great. There is no God except the one God.
So that's a Methodist minister speaking at a Roman Catholic church and saying, Allah Akbar. Yes. You know, there are so many people who claim that they are defending their own faith, but they are just simply working to tear down their own churches. And I don't understand it. To me, I'm completely lost. Now, the people that we are battling in that part of the world, and yes, we are battling ISIS. All of civilization is battling ISIS. This is a fellow, this was a video that was released over the weekend. It was actually, though, taken last December, so it's almost 12 months old. And this is an ISIS fighter who has been captured on the battlefield. I'll listen to this fellow. It sounds as if this real man has just been told he's being demoted to the JV squad.
تستاهلون.
Now, maybe that's a little too long, but you get the idea. This guy is not happy and bawling like a baby after he has been captured. Apparently upset he will no longer be able to burn anyone else in a cage or behead small children or torture Christians. So he's in absolute tears and beside himself. One of the ISIS tough guys, once he's been actually isolated from ISIS, suddenly turning into a babbling baby. 9/11, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. Lefty is having a conniption because some Republicans are saying, you know what we need to do? We need to destroy our enemies. This is Ted Cruz speaking.
Man was stopped climbing the fence at the White House. Yeah, they stopped him halfway up the fence. The Secret Service came up. They said, "I'm sorry, Mr. President, you got another year."
First of all, they're upset that he tells jokes like that, but they're really, really ticked off that he is talking about how we can best smoke our enemies.
Right now, we have a photo op foreign policy. Drop a bomb here, a missile there. You know, the radicals say they reject modernity. Great. We need to send them back to the Stone Age.
Yeah, baby.
How do you do that? You have a commander-in-chief that lays out a clear objective. We are not going to weaken. We are not going to degrade. We are not going to pinprick ISIS. We are going to destroy them. We are going to make, if you join ISIS, you are signing your death certificate.
It appears that the crowd listening to Ted Cruz in Iowa, where he has now surged into second place in most polls, appreciates that approach. I don't understand, though, why Democrats are still so weak-kneed about the possibility that we have to destroy these people. It just doesn't it make sense that if you destroy them, then they can no longer wreak any more havoc on people or wreak any more havoc on the population of the Middle East or in Paris or perhaps even in the United States. Cruz is being criticized in left-wing media, which is 98% of what we have in the United States, being criticized because he's calling for an end, wiping these people out. Well, yeah, they're bad people. Remember there was a news conference being held some years ago when Donald Rumsfeld was still defense secretary under the second President Bush, and some reporter, obviously somebody who'd been out drinking too late at night and was still a little bit pie-eyed when they got into the news conference in the morning, was asking him why he was trying to kill Osama bin Laden. The defense secretary looks at this reporter, looks at this moron and says, "Of course, goodness gracious, after what he's done?" It's the same point being made by Ted Cruz, and yet Lefty is uncomfortable with the notion of destroying our enemies. A guy writing in Newsday, actually he was with the Heritage Foundation, his name is Ted Bromond, and he says that Mr. Obama yapping about shared values is just full of baloney. He said it's banal to say that concerns about terrorism are serious. Of course they're serious. What hasn't been serious is the president's response to those concerns. His argument that refugees from war-torn Syria are no different from all the tourists who pour into the U.S. every single day is folly. He says, before tourists arrive, we know who they are, overwhelmingly anyway, and they are screened in advance by the FBI, the State Department, and Homeland Security. We will know far less about the refugees because, again, they don't have any records left. And some of them made sure they ditched their records. What really disturbs me, the writer says, about the refugees is President Obama's claim that slamming the door in their faces would be a betrayal of our values. So where were those values when Syria's Bashar Assad was dropping barrel bombs on his people? Where have they been as ISIS attacks the ancient city of Palmyra with bulldozers? Where were they when ISIS killed Yazidi men and sold the women into sexual slavery? Yeah, so much for shared values. 9:15, Bill Colley with you on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Our telephone number 736-0300. That's 736-0300. And I do want to thank you for taking some time out with us this morning. So if the refugees are not going to be coming to Twin Falls and Boise, where will they then be going? Well, Ben Carson traveled all the way to Jordan, where he actually dropped by some camps that have been prepared for some of these people. And he made an appearance yesterday on NBC with the macho Chuck Todd.
I think the most compassionate thing when you're fighting a war is to do it quickly. The longer you drag it out, the more people are hurt. And I think we need to work in close conjunction with our Department of Defense, with our Pentagon, with our experts. Ask them, what do you need in order to accomplish this? And then let's make a decision. Are we going to give that to them, or are we going to keep, sort of giving them things piecemeal?
Now, they're angry with Ted Cruz for saying, let's, snuff these guys. And they're not angry with Ben Carson for saying, let's snuff these guys, because right now left-wing media anger is being focused on Carson's claim, resettle these people in the Middle East. Why? That would be outrageous. Oh, they're at war over in the Middle East. Yeah, well, it wasn't our war, as we said, while Yazidis were being killed and women were being sold into sexual slavery, or when Assad was bombing his own people or gassing his own people. Why is it suddenly our business now? That's a libertarian argument, but it's really being brought forth, I think, by not only many of the candidates running for the Republican nomination for president, occasionally by some Democrats. Unfortunately, none who are running for president. They all keep saying it's all about climate change, and that if we would just control the climate, the ISIS would all pack up and they'd go home, or they need a jobs program. Because if they had a jobs program, then they'd forget all about their religious faith. And you know, we could teach them to be more like Americans. That is, they could end up gobbling lots of bacon. Try to sell that one to them. Drinking a couple of martinis after work to settle down. And, of course, they probably still want to beat their wives after a few drinks. But you know what? Give them some T-shirts without sleeves. Hey, they'll fit right in. You're up next. You're on the air with Bill Colley.
On the subject of the terrorists over there, I'd say, yeah, we hit him, but we don't go after Assad. He didn't do anything to his people. That's a myth. An Obama myth. Why are you defending that?
I don't care if he did anything or not to them. It's none of our business.
Yeah, you don't understand. He didn't gas his people. You were just saying earlier.
Well, where'd you get your evidence? Where's your evidence?
The evidence is that Al Qaeda got on
No. Where'd you get it from?
Showing that they were the ones gassing.
Because everything on the internet is true, right?
Oh, please.
So you're getting your news from Al Qaeda?
Nobody trusts Fox anymore because they know it's crap. Nobody trusts any of the others. They know it's crap.
Where do you get your information from?
The fact that Fox got caught hundreds of times getting
No. Where did you get it from? Where did you get it from?
The Al Qaeda website where they're bragging about doing it.
Oh, okay. So Al Qaeda is now his source for information and news. Well, at least it wasn't Alex Jones this time. Jones has actually lately been pretty well spot on. 9:20, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX. NewsRadio1310.com. Look, Bashar Assad was actually trying to control terrorist outbreaks in his country. And we kept hearing, well, no, but these people are freedom fighters. You know, his dad fought with us in the first Gulf War. And they stood beside and let us go into Iraq and didn't give us any grief about that, other than probably taking all of Saddam's weapons of mass destruction, which are mainly biological weapons. But for the most part, never been a problem to the good old USA. And then we went in there and started supporting people who ended up, many of them, fighting for ISIS. Absolute whacked. As are some of our callers, we should point out, too.